Hi, everybody. My name is Evan, Mr. Clark. If you attend Holy Trinity, I'm the seventh grade social studies teacher at Holy Trinity. I also teach seventh grade faith formation, and I am a catechist for confirmation at Holy Trinity Parish in El Dorado Hills. I've been asked to reflect some thoughts on saints, hopefully to get you excited in a way that I'm excited about the saints. I won't tell you, however, about my confirmation saint, which is Saint Jude. Google Saint Jude. He is one of the saints who walked with Jesus Christ himself. But today I want to actually tell you about one of my favorite saints. I thought long and hard about making this person my confirmation saint. I decided against it, mainly because his reach wasn't quite as deep as Saint Jude. However, his reverence and worship of God is something extraordinary. So I'm going to tell you about a guy named Saint Simeon. You also see his name, Saint Simeon the Stylite, or Saint Simeon Stylites. Basically, if you go back to what used to be known as the Eastern Roman Empire, which eventually became the Byzantine Empire, there were a series of people, deeply religious people, who thought that their calling was to isolate themselves so that they could practice their faith a little bit more reservedly. They, specifically the Stylites, would sit on top of pillars. So think like a giant column, 9 feet in the air or so, and on a little 3 by 3 foot pad on top of this column, this pillar. They would actually sit there and just kind of meditate all day. The Stylites are part of a tradition. There are a few different themes when you get into the saints. You've got your warrior saints like Ignatius and Francis, and others. You've got some hermit saints who basically separate themselves from society, and then you've got what are called ascetic saints, who asceticism is basically giving up material goods in a very drastic way. So if it's raining outside, an ascetic person might say, "Oh, why would I need a raincoat? That's extra." So anyway, this person, Saint Simeon, he lived outside of what is now Aleppo, Syria, out in Mesopotamia, what I call the biblical region of the world when I'm teaching. He lived on a pillar outside of Aleppo, Syria for 37 years. Yes, 37 years. He did not come down from this pillar. You might be wondering, how did he handle, bodily functions or eating? Well, he had townspeople who considered him a holy man, someone who would sit on a pillar for years preaching God's word. And they would come, they had an ancient pulley system where they would use buckets and send up things like goat's milk and bread to sustain Saint Simeon, and water, of course, up on the pillar. And then he would put his own bucket, which had whatever you can think of, in there, and he would send it down. So he had townspeople who would help him live on top of this pillar for 37 years. 37 years. I'm 31 years old. My life at this point, I mean, praise be to God, feels like it's been a long time since I was in middle school, for example. But to think that I would still have 6 more years to go, my whole lifetime would have been, at that point, would have been the amount of time that Saint Simeon was on this pillar. So yeah, so Saint Simeon Stylites, that's my saint that I'm telling you about right now. Last thing I'll say about Saint Simeon, I like to cruise through the literature, the Bible, for this is kind of my own secret mission, but I like the book of Daniel because it talks about eating healthily. Daniel was said, because he ate 10 days worth of vegetables, or he ate vegetables for 10 days, he was able to have more clarity of thought. Saint Simeon, lost my train of thought. Exercise. I also like to cruise the Bible and the literature for things that could be construed as exercise, because I think part of our faith is taking care of the body that God gave you. So things like exercise, eating vegetables, practicing positive self-care like sleeping well enough, and hydrating. These are things, if you were in my class, you would probably feel like we cover ad nauseum too much. Anyway, here's what I call the Saint Simeon. Saint Simeon was known for basically stretching like this. That was the only exercise he could get from his pillar, but I call it the Simeon. You basically you basically just bend over and touch your toes. A Greek historian who was traveling through Syria in the 4th century when Saint Simeon was doing his thing said that he counted over 1,000 times that Saint Simeon did his bow. So that was also it was an exercise, but it was also kind of a salute to the Almighty. So anyway, that's Saint Simeon, who lived on top of a pillar for 37 years. When you get into the saints, so many beautiful stories, so much fascinating imagery. I hope you Google it. Thank you.